a Seychelles trip report, and a Hilton deep dive with CF Frost on episode 13 of Checking In. All right, I'm here today with CF Frost. CF Frost is not an Amex employee. He's a guy who knows a lot about Amex. He's been on the show before, a very familiar voice, usually talking with authority about Amex, but we're here today to talk about something completely different. CF, welcome to the show. Good to talk with you.
Good to be back.
We're going to talk about Hilton. I don't know if people necessarily think of you as the Hilton guy. You are a Hilton guy, and you just came back from a really good stay there. Before we get into that, though, I want to kind of set the table for what we're talking about here. Hyatt gets such praise for their loyalty program, the way they famously treat globalist guests. But Hilton is a program that is not to be overlooked. They're not sinister like Marriott. They're maybe not as incredible as Hyatt, but you've been able to, and others have been able to extract a ton of value from them. Is that your position on Hilton before we get started?
Yeah, so my general thought is that the general consensus, I think, in the game is that Hyatt is the best. And that's probably true. It's probably true for some, or even most. But just because there's one flag bearer for what makes a good hotel loyalty program doesn't mean that we should just throw the rest of the bathwater out and, classify everything else as, a bevy of deplorables, because there's a lot of value in some of the other chains as well. So, Hilton does do some things right. They do some things better than Hyatt. And you can be a Hyatt apologist and a Hyatt fanboy, but you should still leave room for Hilton in the sense of, what do they do well? How can I capitalize on that? How can I maximize that? Because there's a lot of opportunities if you just take off really narrow focus blinders on, there's only one winner and everyone else is a loser, and just kind of cherry pick the best of the other programs. And if you look at Hilton, with a really critical eye, there's a lot of things they don't do well, but there's also a lot of things they do well. And focusing on those good things, I think you can come out ahead and really kind of diversify your whole travel experience.
I like it. That's a great way to set the stage. We're going to talk about 10 ways that Hilton is better than Hyatt. I thought it'd be more interesting than just kind of talking about great things about Hilton in general. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If you're going to go someplace and there's not a Hyatt there, what does that mean? You're not going to ever visit that place because you're so hell-bent on staying at Hyatts all the time and maximizing your time as a globalist or whatever it might be. The program is just very interesting, but different. And I think we'll go over and give people tips on how to use it more effectively today if they're not so familiar with the Hilton program. But before we get started on that, I did want to pick your brain on this trip that you took not too long ago to a Hilton brand. They have like 18 brands in their portfolio. It's pretty impressive. It was to an LXR property. Now, where was that one?
Yeah, so it was in the Seychelles, and they have just started the LXR brand. You wake up every morning, it seems like Hilton has a new dedicated brand of hotels that caters to some subsect of a subsect of a subsect that they're trying to go after, like, vegan millennials who drive Ford pickup trucks. They're going to have their own chain soon. But the LXR chain kind of struck my interest because I thought it would be, if executed well, something that I would be really into. It's branded as a very upscale luxury type brand, along with Conrad and Waldorf, kind of like their flagship for luxury. But where Conrad is kind of the minimalist modern luxury, and then you have Waldorf, who's kind of like the old world, kind of stuffy luxury, which people do like, and LXR was going to kind of fill the void of the boutique luxury, where you kind of go there and you are treated as if you're a guest of the hotel in the truest sense. Like they invited you over to the hotel because you're a family member. Smaller room capacity, kind of, and I say this, with all due respect, kind of like an Aman Light, I think, is kind of what they're going for.
Ooh.
They can never live up to that classification, of course, nor do I think they're trying to. But that kind of vibe of, you come here and it's like, we brought a family member into our home. and it's going to be small properties and, boutique upscale luxury.
I can't wait to hear about how your stay was, because that is a pretty lofty and very appealing to me description there, and very valuable because if you look at their website, the Hilton website, all you can really tell is the first thing listed is Waldorf Astoria, the second is LXR, the third is Conrad, and I get the sense that they're trying to rank order those in terms of prestige. But as you outlined there, there's a lot more to what goes into a brand than just the cost of it or the perceived fanciness of it. There's a nature to these things. There's dozens of car manufacturers, right? But you want to find the one that matches with your personality, and that's a very subjective thing. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that. Are there any distinguished characteristics about it? I saw a thread recently on the Andaz chain within the Hyatt chain, and it was talking about Andaz means free minibar. That's one thing that they definitively do. And then you find out that a lot of properties aren't even having free minibars anymore. But is there anything like that is, there's a butler at every one of our properties? I was looking around at their locations around the world, and it didn't seem to be very strategic. There was one in Santa Monica, there was one in Seattle, there's one in Kyoto, I think, right? And it's like, is there a strategy?
There's one in Vegas now.
Yeah, exactly. Like a big giant one, kind of, or maybe a boutique hotel within a giant hotel. So right. What is that seems to be in contradiction, I guess, with the idea of being invited over to someone's home in a giant hotel in Las Vegas.
Right. I don't know how the Vegas one, when I saw that, so they kind of been announcing these, bit by bit, but there's one in the Caribbean that looks really cool. There's one in Kyoto, which they're building, which I think if they execute it correctly, just the general nature of Japanese hospitality, I think could be a home run. And, the one in the Seychelles, and then you see the one in Vegas, and it's like, I guess it's part of a much larger hotel, would be a hotel in a hotel concept. But I think that's going to be tougher to execute just by the general nature of Vegas type hotels. So they kind of, I raise my eye a bit when you see the branding and you see what they're moving towards, and then you put one in Vegas and it kind of makes you stop and think. But overall, I mean, not to spoil the end, I was very pleased with how they did it in the Seychelles. And if they can replicate that in other hotels, I think that it's a very strong option for people using points and certificates going forward, because there's sensational value based on the room rates that these hotels do command.
Well, you do seem to have quite a bit of experience in range in the region, and the region, in my mind, being never having visited an exotic resort island in the Indian Ocean. So you've got the Maldives, you've got the Seychelles, and you've got Mauritius. Is that another one that people tend to
Mauritius,
go to?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure I mispronounced all three of those. Go over three there. But you've been to this island before, and you've been to some of those others as well. Maybe start there a little bit broader. What would draw somebody to the Seychelles versus those other islands?
Correct. So I've been to the Maldives twice, and the Seychelles once before on my honeymoon. So where the Maldives is very unique in the sense that, as everyone knows, you get that little island that you're on, and that's kind of it. And you got that shipwrecked, disconnected feel, which is, I think some people love it and some people hate it. But it generally you're limited in terms of what you can do when you're there, generally, which is a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you like to travel or want to travel. Mm-hmm. The Seychelles have a little bit more behind them than the Maldives, just because there's a main island. And on the main island, there's hiking and there's jungle and there's more of a local culture. Mm-hmm. So you get more diverse food and people, and just you can get off the resort and you can see art and just get a little more sense of culture than you do in the Maldives. And that's not to detract from, I know some people, they turn their nose up at the Maldives, and people who go to the Maldives turn their nose up at people who don't go to the Maldives, just because I can see how it's a very unique vacation that people would either love or they hate. So it's not the Maldives. The beaches are beautiful, but it's a very different atmosphere than the Maldives. And I think it's wonderful. And I also think the Maldives are wonderful too, for what they are. And both places I would go back to in a heartbeat. I think that the Seychelles has more of a Hawaii type vibe, just because you have more to do off the resort, where the Maldives is kind of in its own world in terms of the lifestyle that you command when you go there.
I love that CF. I mean, not knowing these things from afar, they just seem like exotic resort destinations to me. I've seen the pictures of them and I can see exactly what you're saying. You're not going to be wandering around and exploring the rest of the island. It's just that resort. That's it. And the idea of a private island is very appealing to some people for a certain type of vacation. And it's not even certain types of people, it's certain types of vacations. And what you're describing there with the Seychelles is really interesting. Did you get off and explore a little bit around the resort, or did you spend most of your time at the resort?
So the first time I went to the Seychelles, we stayed at a Hilton Le Brise. And the Hilton Le Brise, this was 5, 6 years ago, is on its own island that it shares with a national park. So there's the national park, and then there's the Hilton. And it's a huge island. And there's, jungles and beaches and a little mountain. So you're, though, confined on that island. So it kind of has like a big Maldives feel. And I'll give a plug to that hotel, too. It's a phenomenal hotel. It's branded as a Hilton, but it really it swings a lot higher. They could make that into a Conrad probably just by slapping some different stickers on it. It is a phenomenal hotel, and you get a somewhat Maldivian feel in the sense that you're on an island in the middle of nowhere. So you get that aspect to it. When we went back, we were excited about the LXR because it was going to give us a chance to get off the property and kind of explore a little bit within the country of the Seychelles. And we were able to do that, which was phenomenal.
So both these properties are on the main island. There's not an island off the island in either of these situations. And that's true of most of the resorts there?
So Le Brise is on an island just off the main island. You can either take a very cheap ferry ride or you can take a helicopter and get there in 5 minutes. So it's not like a Maldivian thing where it's, seaplane and the whole 9 yards. So it's right off the coast of the main island. The Seychelles has a lot of islands in it. Most of them are generally uninhabited for people or hotels. And most of the hotels are concentrated on the main island of Victoria.
And the Mango House LXR that we're talking about here is on the main island?
Correct.
All
yes.
Right. And so that gave you an easier, sure, you could take the ferry, but if your goal was to more explore the island, that would probably be the way that you would recommend.
Yes, for sure. Le Brise was wonderful for what it was, but if you wanted to get a sense of the Seychelles, the people, the local, the culture, you probably want to stay more on the island. Because once you get somewhere, there's that inertia. If you're spending all this time and all this money to go to Le Brise and, hang out on the island, do you really want to be catching ferries? And, it just makes more sense to stay where you want to stay.
Got it. Well, I think that also serves as a good opportunity to compare the quality of the property and the service standard there. I think, and we'll get into it more as we talk about the loyalty program, there's a perception that maybe Hilton and maybe Marriott Bonvoy, they don't treat you very well here in the United States, where there's so many, kind of people who have ginned up elite status one way or another. There's too many elites flying around. So my perception is that you get treated better as the Hilton or Marriott elite overseas, anywhere but the United States. So I think it's interesting to compare your stay at these two properties because they're part of the same portfolio in the same region. Maybe one is in a higher category in terms of its classification as an LXR versus a Garden Variety Hilton. But what was the loyalty treatment like, and what was the resort like overall?
Oh, it was phenomenal. A loyalty treatment and the resort were phenomenal. So when it started, the first thing that you always kind of want to see is like how responsive are they in advance to your questions or comments and everything else. And especially in a time of COVID when you're worried about how am I going to get tested on the island to leave eventually. And then to make matters even more complicated, me and my wife had booked this with free resort night certificates. And we kind of had to do it one night at a time because they only have 27 rooms. And their room categories are almost every room is its own category. Oh, now, that's not an issue necessarily with the free night certificates because there's a few different room types that go into that base of using them. But we never found that you could string 2 nights in the same room type together.
Yeah.
So, first night was like in a ADA room. Second night was in a deluxe room. Third night was in a standard room. Fourth night was in like a double bedroom. So we have 4 different reservations across 2 people against 4 room types. So I wanted to let them know in advance that ideally, same room if possible, but just so they're not kind of, confused about all these different reservations.
This guy really wants to check out every room on the hotel.
Yeah. So they were so responsive beforehand about, okay, here's how we can get you a test. And we're going to note that about, we want you to be in the same room. And we should be able to take care of all of that. And also in that, we booked a car to the hotel from the airport. We looked at the taxi rates. It's going to be like $15 more to take a hotel car versus a cab. And we thought, after a long flight, so much easier just to get right into the right car. Don't have to worry about currencies, to take credit card. If the car's got a suspension problem, just go right to the car, right? And it worked fabulously, just like it was intended. Someone's there with the name and you get in the car. And what was great about it was when we pulled up to the resort, clearly there was, communication, because door opens up and they knew it was us coming in. It wasn't like, who are you, this and that. So like right off the bat, tremendous start, that their pre-arrival and their arrival was right on point. And we got there at 8:00 in the morning. So, I mean, this is pushing the limits of a early check-in.
Yeah.
And they were so apologetic that they didn't have a room ready for us yet.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But they were like, you know what, while you wait, go have breakfast for free. Don't worry about it, and when the room is ready, we're going to make that the first room we clean. And we will make sure that you stay in the same room the entire time. You won't have to change room keys. And it will all work out in the back end. And we went to breakfast. And sure enough, breakfast over, the room was ready. Nice. So it was a really great start. Like the free breakfast on arrival was such a nice treat, because completely unexpected, completely not in any program terms or any expectation of it. And, it's just we weren't that hungry, but it was nice to get something to eat and just wait and have a cup of coffee and just not worry about, just hanging out in the lobby, while the whole situation is sorting itself out. So really off to a really great start.
Fantastic. You said you were there. You mentioned 4 different room categories. Was it literally a 4-night stay?
It was a 4-night stay. Yep. So it was a little shorter probably than most people would want to do, but just based on scheduling, that's all we had time for, unfortunately.
Well, I like the number of rooms. That low count gives them, I think, an easier opportunity to make the experience personal. Is there much to do there at the resort, or is it, in terms of, I don't know, tennis courts, beach? What activities? What's the presence like there? The scope of the resort, or getting off of the resort and doing other stuff.
Yeah. So there's 3 pools, which is nice, and you can go to the 3 different pools, and they all have a very different feel to them. And unsurprisingly, they're not really that busy, any of them, just because there's not that many rooms.
Yeah.
There's a small beach in front of the hotel, and I would say the beach is unimpressive. And I don't think that's a surprise going in if you're looking at pictures. It's not, the most beautiful beach, and it is rather small. There's a lot of really nice beaches right off the resort. It's probably too far to walk, but cars are relatively cheap to rent there. And there's all sorts of guided tours if you wanted to check out different beaches. People will take and drive you around from beach to beach. One unbelievably nice Diamond privilege that they have for Diamond guests there is that they will give you a free car to use for a day.
Wow.
Go to the desk. They have cars. They give you the keys, and it's yours. Just bring it back. Don't worry about anything else.
That's almost even better than family, right? If I'm visiting family, it's always a little awkward to borrow somebody's car. Like, are you insured, mister?
And I think you feel you got to clean it and fill it up with gas and the whole 9 yards. But that was phenomenal perk for people, and really kind of like sets that hospitality tone.
And were you comfortable driving around the island?
So the roads are very narrow, and sometimes the edges aren't very well defined. So it's definitely something that you want to drive slowly and carefully. And I wouldn't necessarily want to drive at night.
Do they drive on the right-hand side of the road or the left-hand side?
They drive on they drive on the British side of the road.
Oh, no, the left side then.
Yes. Oh, no. So, I mean, there's a few factors, right, that kind of go into it. But overall, it's nice because they give you a map and they tell you everything that's great, to the point of just, there's 70 things that they highlight on the map. Oh, this is a great beach. Oh, this is a great little restaurant to stop at. Oh, every little thing that they treat you like you're going to your cousin's house and he's trying to give you the inside scoop of the local hip places to go see.
Very
So that
cool.
was great. And the other nice thing is, if you don't want the car, they'll give you a free massage for everyone in the room. So, I mean, they super, super generous in terms of an unpublished, elite benefit.
Oh, that pulled through just for Diamond guests, and we'll get into how easy that is to obtain in a minute. But that is, I agree, very nice. And I guess all the other good stuff that came through with Diamond. Let me ask, not to guide it too much, but I'm curious about the rooms. Is it like a gorgeous drop-dead room? Is there a big range of rooms from entry level to the tippy top? And how much did they upgrade you? It sounds like the hotel was full based on your check-in being a little bit later, close to full, or at least that room category is full. How was the room?
It was close to full. So, there's only 27 rooms, and I think half of them are kind of villa-y, so I don't think that they fall into any sort of upgrade. Every room faces the ocean, which is beautiful. So there's no parking lot view room. There's no quote unquote garden view room that looks over, one sad palm tree and a patch of grass. So every room, you pull open the drapes and you're looking right at the ocean. So beautiful. Generally, the rooms that they will upgrade you to as a Hilton Diamond are relatively, even though they're kind of called differently, they may be one floor higher. Think of a hotel that has basically a lot of outbuildings, and there's outbuildings, 4 rooms per outbuilding, higher, lower, 4 corners kind of thing. The rooms, brand new. Hotel, brand new. So it's very nicely appointed. Water pressure wasn't great, if I can be frank, on the shower situation. But otherwise, the room was very well appointed in terms of enough plugs. The air conditioner was phenomenal, which is something that I kind of look for in a hotel, especially at night when you wake up and it's like 90 degrees and you're dripping in sweat because the flimsy AC isn't working. The bathroom, high quality products, great amenities. It was a really nice room. And in the room, they gave you a free beach bag to even take home. You got some straw hats that you could wear and also take home. Bathrobes were nice, but you couldn't take those. You could not take those. But they really gave you a lot of like little gifts, along the way that really kind of, it's funny because like the hats can't be that expensive to them, but they're such a nice little memento of the trip. It's sitting, on my hat rack, so to speak. I can look at it and I can, a little smile on my face,
I like it.
about the trip. So it's a super nice gesture, and they really excelled on the little things at the hotel.
That makes a big difference. Let me ask about the food in a couple ways. What's the cuisine like in that region, and how many restaurants are there on site?
So, the typical cuisine for the Seychelles is, fish-based kind of Creole type cooking. And the hotel has 3 restaurants that kind of all function out of almost a shared kitchen and relatively similar shared space. So the areas that you eat, if you're eating in the Japanese restaurant compared to the Creole grill, I mean, you could throw a football not even far and hit the other one because there's only 27 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's not these big sweeping dining rooms per se. But the food was phenomenal across the board. It was phenomenal. There's a Japanese restaurant. There's a general, Western-ish restaurant, and there's a local-ish Creole fish grill restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And we ate at all 3. And all 3 of them were really, really, really good. There was always an amuse-bouche to start. By the last night, the server knew us and he brought us a free appetizer. And it was super, super nice. There's a couple bars sprinkled into the hotel that kind of have their own space, a beach bar and a bar on the top floor that overlooks the ocean for kind of more upscale cocktails. And they really did a very nice job of defining spaces that had their own feel to them, even though they're working with the constraints of it being a relatively small property that's not going to have a lot of room and space between the different areas to, make them feel different because, there's only 27 guests. So how many bars and big bars do you need?
Right.
But they did a really nice job of appointing the areas and making each area feel unique, that you're getting a different experience from going from one place to another.
Sounds great. Where was breakfast served? In the generalist restaurant or where?
Yeah, and breakfast was great. They had a buffet, and first of all, breakfast is free for everyone, not just Diamond.
Oh.
They have a buffet, but the buffet was closed. So instead, for COVID reasons. So the way they handled that was they just had the waiters basically continuously walking around with all the buffet food that they would then put on your plate if you wanted it.
Nice.
And they had a menu for hot items. And they also said, order off the menu. If there's something you want, if we have the ingredients, we'll throw it together.
Nice.
And I don't remember what my wife ordered, but she did do something off the menu, and they put it together, and it was phenomenal.
Oh,
so again, like food and beverage, right on point. Really, really good stuff.
And so you would have breakfast complimentary each morning. Everyone had that complimentary. So was there any kind of more free food that you got as Diamond, since you're like, hey, the breakfast is free for everybody. What do I get for my Diamond here?
So nothing additional there. On arrival, there was a bottle of champagne in the room and some treats of sorts. I don't even remember what they were, but something sweet as well. In the room as kind of a thank you for being a Diamond. I think to a certain level, the whole car massage thing is kind of a way that they try to do something extra for Diamonds, since they're not, giving them any breakfast for free.
Yeah.
But overall, I'll take the, most places I would go, I would take a free day rental car over, a continental breakfast that's, some sad looking cantaloupe and a English muffin that's probably stale. So for me, that would be a happy trade-off. And to get both, a really, really solid breakfast and, the extra perk was just phenomenal.
And so what for lunch and dinner, did you, as you said, you ate on site 3 times, maybe off site a little bit, maybe just snacks by the pool for lunch or during exploring the island? I mean, so one thing I think people can be concerned about, myself included, is just getting raked over the coals and the cost of food in a captive situation. But it doesn't sound like you felt like you felt like you got a good value for what you spent on the meals.
Yeah, so generally we ate off site a couple times for lunch. The dinners were pricey, but they weren't outrageous given the food quality and what it was. I didn't find any sticker shock when I looked at the menu. The island is obviously cheaper to eat than at the hotel, but I had no issues with the prices. It wasn't like Maldivian prices for food when you're super captive, and I thought that the quality more than made up for the general more expensiveness of the food.
Were you able to use your Hilton Aspire $250 per card member year credit towards food and beverage there?
Oh, well, now this was a fiasco. So COVID strikes and supply chains disrupted, as you know, and they disrupted the supply chain so much that the hotel couldn't get in a credit card reader for check-in and everything else. So they're working off a credit card reader that I don't know where they got it from, maybe Amazon, but it doesn't take Amex.
Oh my goodness.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, one of the reasons why we picked this hotel was to use, I have a fleet of Aspires, and I was going to, split them across the cadre, and every soldier was going to take $250, in the fight against the bill. And then, that was kind of a gut punch. And they were extremely apologetic. And I know that's something that, they're not doing it to stick it to people. At first I thought it was kind of like, are they just trying to save processing fees by not taking Amex? This is ridiculous. But then, it truly is something that maybe by now has been corrected, but it wasn't corrected at the time. And it was disappointing. What made it even doubly disappointing, too, was that at the time I went, there was the promotion where you got an extra 10 points per dollar spent if you used your Hilton credit card to pay the bill. Yeah. And it's like, oh, gosh. So it's funny because I emailed Hilton afterwards. I'm like, I'm going to get these points. This is no fault of my own.
Yeah.
So I email Hilton and they're like, oh, just go take it up with Amex. And it's like, Amex isn't going to do anything. First of all, this is your promotion and your hotel. And if I go to Amex and be like, there was an on-site promotion for using my card and they didn't accept it, they'd be like, that's not my problem. Go take it up with the hotel. So I did a little pushback a couple times, and they eventually did credit me the points I would have gotten had I been able to use the card. So I
Hilton
thought
did.
that was fair. Yes, Hilton did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, Amex is they're the perfect machine, but going outside of the the normal operation procedure is beyond their means sometimes. I think a better person to argue with Hilton in this case than them. That's a weird one. That's unfortunate, but I'm sure you'll find another chance to use those Aspire credits. So
Gotta now, just the guy take another vacation.
exactly.
But one more thing I just wanted to touch on too is I wanted to really like highlight like how great the service at that hotel was, and
please.
why it gave me good feelings about the brand going forward if they can find a similar tone in other hotels. So like the first thing was like having to switch rooms. In theory, I was afraid of 4 times. Like, I've never been to a hotel where when they told me like the key was gonna work and don't worry about it, you won't have to come here to have it reprogrammed, that it actually happened as intended. And invariably it's always like when 2 o'clock, when it thinks you're no longer in the room and you're at the pool, right? So you're like dripping wet, and now you got to like sludge all the way to the lobby while people are like checking in their formal attire, and you're
Yeah.
soaking. Can you reprogram my key? But like for 4 days, I never had to go there once.
Nice.
It just every day, perfect. It's like as advertised. They communicate on like WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
So, they give you your number and you can talk to them about any request, about a dinner reservation. There was a time we were at the pool and I realized I didn't have a charger for a converter for my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I texted them like, do you have a American converter? And they said, oh yeah, we'll get one to your room. And it was 4 minutes later when I was back in my room walking down from the pool, and there was already a new converter in the room.
Wow, phenomenal.
I mean, they hit all the notes. The staff was super empowered. My wife ripped her hat, her straw hat. She put it on too fast, the brim rips. And we were talking at dinner with one of the wait staff, asking how the stay was, and my wife's like, "Oh, it's going great, except I broke my hat." And wouldn't you know, we go back to the room after dinner, and there's a new hat.
Oh,
so
awesome.
You call someone or tell someone, and they just take care of it.
I love it.
Yeah, and the last night, our flight out was at midnight. So it's like, the last stay at the hotel is always a little bit chaotic, especially on a short stay, because like you got to leave at 2, so you have breakfast, and then what do you do? So it's like, okay, let's see if we can get a late checkout, because I don't know what else I'm gonna do. So like, oh, we can accommodate a late checkout. It's like, well, how late can you go? And they're like, how late do you need? It's like, well, our flight's at midnight. And they're like, well, you can stay until 8:30 p.m.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So it was tremendous. So we had the whole day. It didn't feel like a half day. They did housekeeping. They did a clean of the room in the morning even. So we came back from the pool and the room was clean with fresh towels and everything else. So
wow.
It really...
Yeah, usually on a late checkout that last day, it's like, okay, you can stay here as long as you want, but we're not cleaning the room one more time.
Right. Exactly. And the key card still worked all the way up until 8 o'clock. So, I mean, like they really went out of their way to give great service. And, by the end of our 4-day staff, everyone knew you by name. They remembered what you had for dinner the night before. And if you had we were leaving breakfast one morning and the guy knew that we had a reservation for dinner, we didn't tell him, it was probably in the book, and he'd see you tonight at 6 o'clock.
Wow.
So like, I mean, not obviously, I've never been to an Aman, but you hear about the service level, and it's not that. So I'm not going to come here and say like, they nailed the whole, Aman style and everything else. But you can tell that's kind of what they're working for. And, I think they're trying to hit it. And I think that they're really giving a great effort to, and totally pleased with the stay. It really, truly was awesome.
I was going to ask, let's end on a high note after not taking the Amex card, but I think you absolutely nailed it right there. Sounds like a ringing endorsement for this property and for the brand overall. How do people get there if they want to get there in the future?
So, from the U.S., the easiest way to get to the Seychelles is with any of the 3 Middle Eastern airlines. One-stop connection. We flew Qatar, had a layover in Doha, but you can get there Emirates and Etihad, and it's one stop from the U.S. And the timings generally work pretty good too, because 4-hour layover kind of thing. So it's pretty good.
I see some awkward timing there when I look to the Maldives. So I guess you have the benefit of not having to take that additional seaplane. Just a house car for $25 or something like that sounds like potentially, especially for short vacations, but maybe a better play if people are liking the nature of what you described there versus those other options. So I think that's a great summary and ringing endorsement of that. Are you ready to get into the 10 ways Hilton is better than Hyatt?
Let's do it.
All right. You want to take this first one here, or should I? The footprint, the number, and the location. You came up with this one. Why don't you take this one, CF?
Yeah, I'll take it. So, I mean, the most important thing to me of a hotel is that I can actually stay in it, to a place that I'm actually going. So like this weekend, I'm taking a trip and there's one Hyatt and the Hyatt's sold out. Downtown, there's 4 Hiltons and they all have availability and the prices of them are super high and the point rate is really, really good. So, if I was just blinders on Hyatt, where am I staying? But being able to flank to a Hilton, there's way more Hiltons throughout the United States, throughout the world. And that makes it easier to earn points, to earn status, minus credit cards, because, if you're going to Topeka, you can stay in a Hilton. And conversely, if you're going to your, son's Little League tournament, in the middle of nowhere, and room rates are going to be high because everyone else is driving in for it too, that there's a Hampton Inn that probably has decent point availability. So there is value in having some sort of a tie to a program where you'll be able to find a room in that city pretty much no matter what that city is, no matter when it is either, and almost throughout the entire world. So to me, I think that's a huge benefit, and I think that it shouldn't be overlooked.
I go right along with that. They have a presence everywhere. They might not be particularly strong in a certain region or a certain city, but they have a presence almost everywhere. So that goes a long way. Yeah, and you don't get into these situations where you're absolutely wrapping a trip around staying in a specific Park Hyatt or something like that. So I do see that as a big strength. And I know that Hyatt always seems to try harder because perhaps they don't have such a big footprint, but undeniably it's an advantage for Hilton. Hilton probably second biggest footprint next to Marriott at this point?
Yeah, I would say unless you're maybe IHG, I don't know. I mean, they got so many weird brands that, but I think that the overall quality of Hilton is higher than IHG on a hotel by hotel basis. So, I would say they're probably number 2. If they're not number 2, they're a better 2A than 2B.
There you go. All right, I'll take the next one here. Number 2, a decent, meaningful status with no spend. And so I guess there's 2 angles to that, right? You can get gold status just by having an Amex Platinum card, and probably a lot of other ways too. So that gets you a pretty good benefit, a breakfast benefit at a lot of properties, last I checked, and that's pretty nice. And with the Aspire card, you get diamond status, which is, I guess, their top published status. There might be something secret above that. Some might argue that you don't get that much out of diamond relative to Hyatt Globalist, but with very little effort there, not doing a thing except for carrying a credit card or even carrying an adjacent credit card, you get some decent spend that can give you some breakfast benefits, maybe an upgrade or 2, and treat you to a good time. So I think that is probably one of the easiest of all the programs out there that gives you some leverage. What do you think on the status with no spend?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I find unequivocally overseas, they treat golds and diamonds very, very well. And that status definitely matters. So if you're taking an international trip, and you only maybe a gold or a diamond that's used to, nothing but a, fake smile when you check into a hotel in the United States. Overseas, they really do a nice job of honoring status. And those statuses for like Hilton Diamond, you can get it on a credit card that ends up being fee positive based on the other perks of the card with the airline incidental and the hotel credit and the points and everything else. It's almost like they're paying you, to have diamond status. So it's a really good, almost, you can work towards a no cost basis for at least a gold or a diamond status, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, let's roll right into that next when you're talking about credit cards. I'll let you take it, but it's number 3, 4 credit cards for Hilton versus 2 with Hyatt and their link up with Chase. So these are Amex cards, all the Hilton cards. There used to be a strange joint relationship between Citi and Amex serving the Hilton base. And when it came over to be all Amex, I thought that was kind of the party over. You couldn't do the free net certificates over on the Citi side and the more point-based system over on the Amex side. But it seems like Amex just kind of doubled the number of cards that they have in the portfolio. So talk to us about that. And I think it'd be a good time to mention the nice thing that you discovered for everybody on the Aspire card and the no annual fee situation on that benefit-laden card that I don't know when they're going to start charging an annual fee on that. It could be well into 2023.
Yeah, I mean, that still is paying dividends, crazy. New year rolls over, another $250 in United Travel Bank. It's like, the gift that just keeps giving. But yeah, when Citi lost the Hilton, split, so to speak, I was worried too, because I'm like, well, Amex is going to have no competition. So the card is probably going to get, cut a little bit. It's not going to be as generous. And Amex is like, oh, no, we're doubling down on our generosity and everything else. So it's just been surprising that every time you blink, the sign-up bonus on these cards just keeps getting higher and higher. I think like right now, I think the business is up to 180,000 and the no fee one is either 120 or 100. It's ridiculous. So the idea that you can get 4 cards, get 4 sign-up bonuses, across 2 people, you can quickly get a lot of points very fast. And I know Hyatt, big benefit with the Ultimate Rewards point transfer structure, which, you don't want to overlook. But I think it's nice that, Hilton has its own program. And I think sometimes I find value in the fact that, and this may sound counterintuitive, that when I earn a Hilton point, I'll have no remorse about using it at a Hilton. Where if I earn an Ultimate Reward point, I have to do some mental math and be like, do I want to transfer it to Hyatt, or would I rather just have the cash instead? Mm-hmm. So here, there's no like, I should have cashed it out. There's none of that. These points are, just for that. And it's kind of silly because, you probably want points that are more flexible, that you can cash out because there's more value in that. But I think sometimes there's also like guilt-free points too that kind of make me feel good about not having any other choice but to use them to go someplace nice and to treat myself. And, that's what their intent is, and that's what they're going to do. So you can get a ton of guilt-free, Hilton points on 4 cards. 4 is better than 2. And with some really generous, big number sign-up bonuses. Granted, it takes more points to stay at a Hilton than it does a Hyatt. But I think pound for pound, the sign-up bonuses are as high, if not higher, when you, do your strange wonky math, than what Hyatt cards generally offer, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I'll continue on here with credit cards in a minute on number 4, but just to be clear, there's 3 personal cards and 1 business card right now, no annual fee, and then the Surpass, which is a $95 annual fee card, which bonuses grocery store spend. And we'll talk more about the free night certificates that you can get through spend on these cards, which is a pretty generous perk. But then there's this high-end Aspire card with the $450 annual fee, but that's offset by a big, like you alluded to, air incidental credit and a resort credit. That is pretty handy. It would have been handy at the Mango House if you could have used it.
In theory, very handy. Yeah.
And then they got the business card. The business card also kicks off free night certificates for like $15K a spend a year, has different bonus categories as opposed to the Surpass, but they really hit all the points there. And I think there's, some opportunities historically to upgrade and downgrade and optimize through the whole gamut of things. So it seems like you're constantly kicking off free night certificates and points. Back in the day, I cashed out a bunch of points when there was this weird situation where you could get a very favorable rate on them towards Amazon. I got a bunch of Amazon gift cards, and I was like, oh, I'll never stay at a Hilton. The scenario where you were just talking, there was for one magic night, it was open. You could actually liquidate them really well. And I was like, well, I'm going to liquidate this $500,000. I'm never going to have any more Hilton points again. And somehow I have, close to 1 million Hilton points between the both of us because these free night certificates cover so much stuff for their high-end properties, and the cards keep kicking them off. It's like you gotta defend them like rodents. They keep coming back.
Right. Yeah, I know. They keep charging at me. Another email, another free. It's like, what did I do? And they had that promotion recently where it was, spend $8,000 targeted and get a free night certificate. And I had it on 2 different cards. And it's like, buckle up, like we're doing this. We're getting another 2 nights here. It's just, and those would stack if you got it and you waited, it was on a Surpass, you could spend $15,000 on a Surpass and it would kick off 2 free night certificates plus all the points for the spend. I mean, just insanity.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And we should point out it could be used at that high-end mango house that you stayed at. What was the room rate there?
The room rate was $800 or $900 a night.
Wow.
And I don't know if that even included tax, but it was around there.
And what's the room category? What does it go for a night on points? I know you use free night certificates, but
95,000.
95,000. So you think of a Hilton point. What would you ballpark the value of a Hilton point? What's the conventional wisdom, and what do you think it is?
0.4 of a cent, I think, is generally the market price, and I think that definitely is a good benchmark to spend for low end properties. Your Hampton Inn, your Hilton Garden Inn, for lower category stuff. If you can get half a cent, when you're going to Topeka, I think you're doing okay. But then on the high end, I mean, you should get a cent if you're looking at high end Conrads, resorts, LXR, high end stuff, because they can go $800, $900 a night. You factor in taxes and fees and everything else, and fifth free night and points, and you're looking at 70, 80,000 points a night. So it's not hard to get a cent a point if you're really going high end. So yeah, there's kind of a range in value. There's almost like two different benchmarks you want to set for price of value for points based on how good the property is.
That's a good point. No pun intended. I like that way of looking at it. Yeah, I'd be fine with around a half cent a piece for just your garden variety domestic stuff, but those international splurge destinations can really stretch the value per point and bring a lot of value to those free night certificates. We'll talk more about those in a minute, but I did want to put a plug in for a previous checking in episode with Mike C., who checked out the Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives, and that's another really one. That's a mind bender in terms of the value you're getting per night on a free night certificate, or even if on the point chart there. So pretty incredible. And I wanted to pause. I don't want to sound like salesman chills here. How hard was it to find availability at the Seychelles property? I know you had to split up into different room categories and things like that. Is it a little bit competitive there? I know the Maldives property is.
It wasn't crazy, and I don't know if that's because COVID and it's new and everything else, but there wasn't any issue of availability in general for months on the calendar when we were looking at it. Again, like there's some wonky stuff about different room types, so you may have to like jostle it, but they showed that they're more than able to handle it on the back end completely seamlessly. So you don't have to worry about getting put in an ADA room and then to a double bedroom and everything else. So
yeah, I'll say I've had good luck. I've been staying at the Waldorf Astoria in Orlando quite a bit, and I don't see them playing games so much with availability. I'll see other properties in the area sold out on points and standard nights more than I will see that property, to the point where it's like, why would I stay at just a garden variety Hilton next door when I can stay at the Waldorf and it's going to be a better experience, and especially if I'm using a free night certificate. So yeah, I don't think that they're, maybe I'll sum it up in the end here by saying, I just don't think that they're a sinister company.
I agree with that.
Like American Airlines, I think they're really out to get their customers half the time. We're going to hurt you. And Hilton just doesn't seem to be that way. They're like, oh yeah, it seems, what's the reasonable thing to do? And we'll talk more about that as we go along. You don't want to spoil the summary here, but let's get into number 4. I'll take this one if it's okay. You can get credit cards even if you're ineligible for the welcome bonus. And you might say, well, why would you want to do that? And think about a card like the Surpass, where you get, 6x on groceries, and for $15,000 in spend, you get a free night certificate. So that can be a fantastic way, and you could refer somebody for that card. You could have somebody refer you for that card. So you can even if you're completely ineligible for the welcome bonus and you've had it before, you could get that, or you could upgrade that to an Aspire. You could apply for an Aspire head-on even without a welcome bonus. Straddle a calendar year and get a lot of benefits out of that over the period, and you can justify the annual fee, take on a referral for it, and put some spending on it if it makes sense to, and make it really valuable. And that's in contrast with Chase with their famous 524 policy, where they won't approve you for a card that you won't get the welcome bonus for, even if you are fine with that. And I would actually like to have the Chase Hyatt card. I have global status. I'd like to put some spend on there. They have a lot of cross promotion between that card and benefits for staying in the program and such. So I would like to get that card, but I can't because I'm always over 524. And that's not an issue with these Amex cards. And I think it's a really nice thing about the Hilton program because of it. What do you think?
Completely agree. I mean, you can get Hyatt status on the credit card spend, and not having that avenue open at all just because of 524 is a huge downer. Again, like you would think that Chase would by now have just said, okay, we think you're a gamer, we're just not going to give you the bonus.
Right.
Like kind of like how Amex does with the pop-up. And that would be a happy medium, because I know personally, like I would love I don't have a Hyatt card either, because I got boxed out with 524 and I'm not willing to make the sacrifice needed to get the Hyatt card. But if they were to offer it to me sans bonus, I do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So it is a big downer that they don't allow it.
Yeah, it's a shame they don't allow it as a globalist perk. I think they kind of give you a backdoor link or something like that if you're a globalist to be able to get the status. But hey, we're talking about Hilton. On to number 5. Oh, conveniently, item number 5 is 5th night free on award stays. You want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to save 25%, 20%. I got to check my math on, any stay. You talk about, again, their points are more expensive and, you're looking towards needing more points to go somewhere. Getting 20 to 25%, off, like that's a substantial savings. And it really does, especially usually if you're going to a high-end place that requires a lot of points, you're usually probably going to go there for 5 nights. So it's not that crazy of a thought that some unobtainable perk that, you'll never make happen. It's very obtainable for the super high-end properties anyway. So it's a nice rebate usually that you're going to use on the most expensive places.
It's a shame it doesn't work on the free night certificates if you stack all those up. I guess it's kind of strange that somebody would have in a singular account that many free night certificates piling up. But like you say, you have a bevy of cards, and maybe you actually would have that situation. But hey, look, I just booked a Hyatt stay that's 7 nights, and I'm not getting any of the nights for free, and I'm not getting any kind of rebate on it at all. So I agree that's a nice aspect of Hilton.
I mean, I've heard stories of people booking 5 with points and then swapping certs 4 of them. But it seems to be kind of a your mileage may vary kind of situation.
Well, it's a nice try. Yeah.
So if you have them, it's almost worth a shot just to see if they'll do it.
Right.
So,
just an aside, how do you like to communicate with Hilton? Is it Twitter, DM, calling them? Is there such thing as the Diamond Desk? How do you connect with these people?
I think that the Diamond Desk, as it was, 15 years ago, is dead. Where they used to be able to force people into rooms. Even, back in the day, if you were a Diamond and the hotel was sold out, you could get a room on points for it. They'd force you in on a point rate, which is insanity.
I have a post up on Milenomics about that. The Diamond Force thing. I've experienced that in my lifetime in the points and miles game. Absolutely. I've stayed at the Waldorf Astoria on the Diamond Force. It was bizarre, and I used to see it come up on the website, not even calling them. It's like Diamond Guarantee. It's like, what? Huh? Okay.
So, I think the Diamond Desk is not what it used to be in that sense. Whenever I can interact with people on Twitter, I generally do it because I find them to be more responsive and more helpful. Just asking them for my free night certificates, before they started putting them on the web, and then they took it off the web and now it's on the web. But DM them with your name and, email address and say, tell me what certs I have, and wait an hour and you'll get a whole listing. It's just, I find that more convenient, dealing with these interactions. But I've also found their phone agents to be relatively competent when you've had to call to book things. So I've had good interactions with their customer service. They seem to be, I had to call American Airlines the other day. I kid you not. They quoted me a callback time between 2 hours and 30 minutes and 21 hours. That was legitimately what it said, up to 21 hours. I'm like, 21 hours? Are you serious? Like tomorrow at 7:00 in the morning, you could be calling me about this? So you don't get that. I've never had that problem with Hilton, thank goodness. But yes, so I found their customer service to be very, very strong.
All right, I'll take number 6, and this is one I'm kind of bothered by in terms of Hyatt, and it's easy point transfers. So I'm casting shade at Hyatt here for how hard their point transfers are, and what we're talking about here is person-to-person point transfers. Both programs allow you, not even the same household, to be able to transfer points back and forth between people for whatever reason. Hyatt says it's for point redemption. Hilton, I don't know what kind of constraints they put on it, but you can transfer points to people, and it's completely above board, entirely within the terms and conditions of their program. And Hilton's is very good. I've been transferring points with a member of the network here, and you just clicks the button and it comes right over instantly. Sometimes the weekend, maybe the first time, it takes a little bit more time for it to go through, but he's like, I sent the points. I'm like, the points are here. Thank you. And they go through points.com. And Hyatt, in contrast, has this paper form that you need to print out or fill out with a PDF, and then you need to get the other people that are sending you the points to fill out the rest of the form with their information, their address, their email address, their telephone number, how many points, and then you finally get it, and then you lob it into this black box of an email address at Hyatt that they never respond to you. It might go through, it might not go through. If there's something wrong with it, they don't even respond to you. It just doesn't happen. And so then you have to start wrangling, talking to my Hyatt concierge, or pinging them on Twitter, and they'll point you back to the email address. And for something that is just instant over at Hilton. I don't know why they have a form over there at Hyatt. It's a huge pain in the neck, and you can only transfer points over there once every 30 days. So Hilton is really far ahead of this in this regard, and it's really important because, one of the reasons why Hyatt has the ability to transfer points, I think, is part of the Globalist Guest of Honor program. And I'm always booking things for friends, and then I get jammed up that I can't receive a point transfer for 30 days, and it's just a huge mess. So Hilton, way, way far out on this, and I don't think they get enough credit for that. You ever do any point transfers on Hilton?
I was going to say the exact same thing. I think that it's completely under publicized how great and easy their points pooling and their points transfers are. It is a huge benefit. I travel sometimes with friends to sporting events out of town, and invariably you're there for a night or 2 nights, and someone will get the room. I'll get the room on points, right? And they'll be like, okay, I'll just take care of you next time, because there's no way someone can give me points to cover it normally, right? Because you got 36,000 points or whatever. And with Hilton, it's great. It's like, okay, half the points, put them in the pool or transfer me over. It's, right away, we're all square. And I don't have to be like, oh, yeah, you know what? Jim's got me the next time we go, but it's got to be at a hotel between 40 and 60,000 points per night. So it evens out. And it's just it just makes traveling with friends so much more easy and so much more fair than you're not just acting like Daddy Warbucks over here, just being the vacation guy who's just booking free nights for everybody. You can travel with friends, and I'm invariably, whenever we go places, I tend to be the person who does the bookings. I maybe because I know the space better than most people do, but then it's just it makes it so much easier just to it's almost like the Venmo of hotel programs.
There you go.
Push a button, send them the bill for shoot me over 20,000 Hilton points,
right?
And we're good. And you forget about it and you move on to the next trip.
Maybe even pick up a referral from them along the way. All right, this is the card you're going to sign up for, and then send me 20,000 of those points. All right, number 7. Got to keep moving here. I'll give you the read off on this one, and you tell me what you think about it. Free night certificates at top hotels, attainable through a reasonable amount of bonus spend. So conflating a few different things there, but it's pretty great, as evidenced by your Mango House day.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they've been kicking off these free night certificates, 15,000 on a Surpass or a business card is very obtainable. And especially when, for the Surpass, you can do it in a very MS-friendly category. So 15,000 isn't really that much if you're a heavy spender. And I think they're the only program that the cert is still completely uncapped. There's no I got to find a 30,000 point or a 50,000 point with Marriott. It's completely uncapped. The Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives, what's that? $2,000 a night. It's wonderful. You can easily gin up the spend to get a cert that literally can go anywhere.
Absolutely. Perfectly stated there. I mean, that's really, if you're a big spender, like you say, that is a really nice benefit of the program. And I didn't really realize that I think is true. You can spend a bunch on Hyatt. Maybe you get a category 1 through 7 certificate if you hit a milestone bonus or something like that. But again, you have to have that credit card, or you might be doing that through stays, but yeah, same thing with Marriott. They seem to ratchet it up in too complicated a manner in these other programs. The 35K certificate, the category 1 through 4 certificate. We'll give you the certificates for the stuff you really don't want to stay at, but the aspirational stuff are going to make a real pain in the neck to get. So I agree. Industry leading characteristic of the Hilton program. And this next one, and we're kind of in a run here, we're talking about things that are them just being a good operation, a good, decent, company that wants to keep their guests, happy. Number 8, free weekend night certificates are usable any night lately. And it's been something that they've been doing through COVID. And as far as I know, they've extended it here through 2022. And with maybe a lot of certificates backing up during the depths of COVID where we weren't staying anywhere, we've been able to assemble some really nice vacations, multi-night vacations, multi-room vacations, and I think it's fantastic. They're usually reserved for Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, what they consider a weekend night. To be able to use those famous 4 additional nights a week, I think is a really nice benefit, and it's making it very easy to use them. I would love it if that stuck around. Airline cancellation fees kind of going away. I would love it if this one stayed around forever. I mean, how hard is it for them to do this? I mean, I think it goes to there not being business travel occupying hotels on weeknights. Until maybe they keep this around until that comes back. What do you think? What's the nature of this?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the hotels that people use them at are more busy on the weekends anyway. So yeah. I think it would help, in general, more people are going to resorts on weekends. So they kind of have it backwards in that. I know they're trying to get breakage, But I mean, probably the one good thing to come out of COVID was this policy changing for at least the short term. And gosh, I would love it so much if long term that was just the way it was. I think it's a huge win. Our trip to the Seychelles was midweek, and it wouldn't have been possible to use certs otherwise, pre-COVID. And it was wonderful to be able to not have that, worry about, okay, one night on points and then certs. And
Yeah.
because now even you're splitting up the reservation even more in that case. And
For no good
Mango House
reason.
could
Yeah.
handle it, right? But like some other hotels maybe can't handle it as well as they can. And, then you're in your swimsuit at the check-in desk at 2:00. So yeah, hopefully, knock on wood, they keep it. That would be tremendous.
Yeah. All right, I'll tee up for this next one. I think it's yours. Generous automatic extension of status, certificates, and points expiry. Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with the previous one, but let's say some more nice words about Hilton.
Yeah, I mean, they just keep extending these certs. It's great. Every time they come up around their expiration, they're just uniformly, completely, just completely rolled over. And that's been, again, like you say, I think they've been really fair during COVID. And I think that's been a nice perk that they've done. It's really easy to keep points from expiring if you just have the Hilton no fee credit card. Even if you don't have any activity, your points won't expire. So, in expiring times, now it's kind of awesome, how you don't have to worry about that. But they're very good about extending stuff and, keeping your points yours, which I think is nice and fair.
Yeah, and no hassle, right? No secret squirrel. You got to chat up this person and create a big log jam of everybody trying to chat up this person, trying to shake loose 10,000, 20,000, whatever points should be for this club certificate or something like that. Obviously, casting shade again there on Hyatt, but yeah, just a no fuss, no sludge kind of transaction, just making it happen for people. I like it. All right, I'll close out the last one here at 10. I'll give you the final word. But number 10 is one that's near and dear to my heart if people listen to the regular show, the favorable cash upgrades to award stays. And what I'm talking about there, for example, is you want to book a room and you want to book a free night certificate. You get that room, you get a certain room. It's usually an entry-level-ish room, and you might get an upgrade to Diamond, maybe beforehand, maybe at the time of check-in based on availability. But if it's important to you to have a larger, a different, a better room, you can usually, at some properties anyway, call ahead of time, ask to speak to the front office there and say, hey, I'm interested in cash upgrades. And, the first time I was approached about one of these I got a letter from the concierge at the Waldorf Astoria in Chicago. And I was really put off by it. I was like, I'm looking for the concierge to do something good for me, like, show tickets or dinner reservations or something like that. What are they coming to me with a, hat in hand looking for some money here? Like, no, beat it. But when I looked at it differently, it became something that really enabled me to look forward to my stays. And I used this twice at the Waldorf Astoria in Orlando. Before I ever got there, I called them up and I was able to get more use out of my free night certificate than I would have otherwise. And the amount of cash that they asked for the additional room was less than the delta in the price between the two rooms I'd booked. Meaning I booked an entry-level room. The next step up was like $800 more, and they only asked for $400. Or the next level up was $400, they only asked for $150. So I think it's a really underrated aspect of the program because it ensures, Double Dogs ensures that you're going to get that quality room that you're looking for, and maybe makes you not have to get two rooms. Maybe makes you, excited about going to that property, whereas you were kind of, worried about being left down in the dungeon if that's all that was available at the property. So I don't know if you've been able to take advantage of this one, but I've had great luck with it. What's been in your experience?
Yeah, so I was able to take advantage of it at the Conrad Maldives, for example. They are similar, where they will email you, just ask them, say, what's the various buy-ups from the base room? And I found that the buy-ups were extremely affordable to go up a room class or even two room classes, much less than I expected. And I took them up on the offer both times that we went and got some phenomenal rooms for a good price. And then, we figure, like, if you have the Aspire card and you're using your 250, I mean, it's almost now paying for the upgrade. So basically,
works for that.
You're getting a cert and a free room upgrade and your Diamond benefit. So I found that, some properties can be really flexible and really generous in terms of what they allow for a paid upgrade at, relatively good prices. And it's definitely worth exploring, to get the room that you really want when you go somewhere that's, a really special trip.
I like it. We should make it clear. Neither of us are DCS, a famous commenter who is always popping in anytime somebody says something nice about Hyatt. He says, "Oh, Hilton's great, and I've been 9 for 9 on upgrades so far this year." But there are some defenders out the program here, and I guess you could add us to the list. I think you said it best at the top. You don't want to be just too pigeonholed into one program. I know you don't look at just Hilton all the time. You look at all the programs, and we kind of work our way back from the thing that we want to do, and then we figure out the best way to make that thing happen. I think that's a lot better way to go about life than having the tail wag the dog. So any closing thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners on Hilton or on any other topic?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say Hyatt's awesome. Don't sleep on Hyatt, of course. But save some room for the other programs, save some love for some of these other hotel chains that do certain things right, and just find a way, if you have the time to, get another card or make a little more spend, to diversify your balances, diversify your mindset. And, maybe you'll end up in the Seychelles, having a cocktail overlooking the ocean at the Mango House, and it'll all be worthwhile.
I'll tell them CF Frost sent me.
Yeah.
CF, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I know you're one of the most popular guests we always have on the show. People in our Slack community can reach out to you, I'm sure. Maybe they'll use a Hilton credit card link or just ask you for advice, and I'm sure you'd be up for exploring that. If we're going to put this out on the free feed so more people can hear about it, mostly 100% above board stuff. So hope everybody enjoys that as an example of the podcast that we're releasing here on the network. That's all for now. Thanks, CF. You have a great afternoon, great weekend.
You too. Have a good one.
All right. You've been listening to Checking In with Robert Dwyer on the Milenomics Podcast Network.